Into the Woods is a brilliantly constructed interweaving of classic fairy tales that we know, plus an invented fairy tale about a childless baker and his wife and the witch that puts a curse on them. And as these people enter the woods pursuing what they want, they collide and hilarity ensues. But they also wind up in that classic place of be careful what you wish for, because what they learn after their happily ever after is there are consequences to getting what you want sometimes. Interestingly, some people say, well, why can't you just do the first act? Well, honestly, the second act is the reason that the play was written, I believe. Knowing what I've read about Sondheim in his own words, and Lapine, that's what really intrigued them about telling these stories was what happens after happily ever after. And I think lots of people have curiosity about that, and I think where Lapine and Sondheim have taken this is just brilliant in terms of how they get us to examine our lives and the consequences of our actions and the incredible value of knowing that we're interdependent and that we have to be aware of that and that we have to work together if we're going to grow as a society. Well, this is a beautifully lush, hummable, romantic, hilarious, catchy score, and it happens to have some of the most brilliant, witty, and funny lyrics you'll ever hear in a musical theater piece. It is accessible to people of all ages. I know that little kids can come to see this play and get a lot out of it, but the older you get, the deeper the play gets. Some of the themes of this play are pretty heavy, but the great thing is that Sondheim and Lapine were smart enough to use this fairy tale world and this, frankly, raucous comedy that's the first half of it to bring us into the lessons. I am blessed to be working with our scenic designer, Hugh Landwehr, who found these gorgeous 19th century images by a French artist named Gustave Doré. They're etchings, and he in fact did illustrate some children's books back then, and they look, if you look at them, they look like very old-fashioned fairy tale books where the woods are all kind of gnarly and they're really intriguing and interesting, but the more that you go into them, the more you realize, whoa, these are like deep and tangled and creepy. And I love that as sort of a metaphor for what the characters are going through. So he used those as a departure point, and I think it's great because those images, plus the costumes, which are Bill Black's design, they are hearkening back to sort of that classic fairy tale era that we would recognize as probably early 1800s European. We haven't pinned it to a certain year, but definitely the text says, you know, we're in an era that has castles and peasants, and there's no cell phones, and it's pre-industrial. This is what really intrigued Lapine and Sondheim to write this play, was the what happens after. And it's the reason for the play, because interestingly, even though our heroes achieve their happily ever after in the first half, that doesn't necessarily mean they've become adults or responsible adults. There's been lying, there's been cheating, there's been stealing to get all of these things, all of these transgressions committed by good people. And I love in No One Is Alone how the baker and Cinderella talk about how witches can be right, giants can be good. And so this examination, which I think of the what happens after happily ever after, is crucial, because without the awareness of your responsibility and your interconnectedness to other people, we have situations that frankly are kind of happening now in our country, where everything is so polarized between people who say, I'm right, you're wrong, no, I'm right, you're wrong. There's no dialogue. And I think whatever your affiliation, everybody's going to be able to have a chance to watch this play and see, hey, you know, I have to maybe accept that my enemy has a point. They actually could be right. If I completely shut that out, I don't necessarily get to grow as an adult, and I don't get to be, you know, part of a community that gets to grow and evolve.